Hello, I'm Matthew from LudoChrono, and today I'm going to give you an overview of Solomon Kane. So this is still a prototype. Solomon Kane is a cooperative board game for 2 to 4 players, though there might be a solo game mode. So it plays for players ages 14 and up, and it plays for around 90 to 2 hours, 90 minutes to 2 hours. And you may save the progress of your game, so you may cut your game short or play longer, depending on how much you want to play or not. So this is a game about helping Solomon Kane, that great hero, to fight evil. And you want to fight evil, that's good, but you do not control Solomon Kane entirely. You control one of his virtues, and every player is going to have a virtue. You can be prudence, courage, justice, or temperance. And each of the virtue is going to master kind of some moves. You're going to be asymmetric, and you're also going to govern an aspect of Solomon Kane. So for example, if you are courage, you're going to master strength. You kind of handle how Solomon Kane is going to spend his strength, do heroic feats. Whereas if you are justice, you're going to be compassionate, you're going to talk to people, negotiate. However, if you are prudence, you're going to handle danger, and in this case, you're going to handle how much the perils of the world are, let's say, how perilous the world is to Solomon Kane. If you play temperance, you're going to have clarity, and clarity is how good Solomon explores. So you're going to interact with the environment and reveal what's behind these environment tokens. Solomon Kane is based into campaigns, and campaigns may have multiple acts. And each act is made up of chapters. This particular act has 4 chapters, and they may be stories, which are basically text and sometimes some gameplay with them, or they might be scenes, and the scenes have you interact with the board, and you're going to have objectives on the board, such as running around to get an objective, fighting, negotiating, saving people, being an escort, that kind of thing. So in this case, we're going to act as Solomon Kane. He heard something weird in the moors, and he's going to go to the source of the sound, and it's a stranger. And the stranger is pursued by a ghost. So how do we act in this game? So in this game, we're going to act with our personal board and the cards that go along with them. So we have a hand of cards, and we choose what we have in our left hand and right hand. And this is very important because they are bonus actions or bonus powers. So this is good, but how do we perform actions? We're going to do them with dice. But before rolling any dice, the first thing you need to do in a round of Solomon Kane is determining the turn order. So the players decide whether one virtue or another will act first. So let's imagine we decide a turn order like this. We're going to have courage playing first. So courage is going to roll dice. 3 dice per turn per player. So I'm going to roll these dice, and then I can manipulate them. The first thing I can do is either turn a die on the opposite side, or I can re-roll a die. And for example, that card allows me, if spent, to re-roll an additional die. So for example, I could have a result that suits me better. I could try to have one. So let's imagine I'm doing this. Then I'm going to perform actions. So I'm going to allocate my dice on matching spots. So for example, I take lightning for lightning, a circle for a circle, but I can use crosses as jokers once per turn again. So I can use my joker here and perform that actions. That action says move Solomon Kane by 1 square. I'm going to do that and move him right next to the traveler. So that's basically my action. I spend my dice, and then that's almost the end of my turn. I will be able to store my dice in my reserve, or I can give my dice. So for example, I can give that dice to the second player, who might have more tools at his or her disposal. Then I'm going to refresh my hands by just getting another card. So I'm going to choose the cards. I know how to combat with this one. I can fight really easily because it's a very good combat card, but I do not have a lot of explore, so I'm going to take an explore card because I want to be better and to have more options. And then I'm going to draw a darkness card. So darkness cards are the timer of the game. You're going to draw one at the end of each turn and apply it. And they make the shadows move towards you and trigger nasty effects. Or they have your enemies, such as the ghost, chase you, chase the traveler and harm you. So these are really not great. And you have a limited number of them, and at the end of the stack, basically, it's the bad ending of the scenario. So you ought to complete the objectives before the timer ends. So once you have resolved the darkness card, that's going to be the end of your turn and another player will start. So it's going to be the second player and the third player and so on and so forth. So the second player would have their 3 dice plus the additional die that I have given to them. So that would be 4 dice to perform more actions. So managing the dice and what players can perform is key to performing well in Solomon Kane. So we're going to play, every one of us is going to play once, and then we start another round of the game and we're going to deal those, choose where to allocate them again. So the game will end once an objective is met, well, a scene will end when an objective is met, or when we have an ending condition, such as Solomon Kane's strength becomes negative, so that means that Solomon Kane is injured and he cannot go on. Or the darkness deck is over, it's depleted. So that kind of thing ends the scene. So we move on to the next scene, and depending on how well you performed, you're going to have different setups, it's not going to be linear. The game allows you to perform several actions, such as exploring those tokens, which might add objective tokens on the cards. You might also talk to people, move Solomon, move the figures, the other figures, and you may also negotiate with non-player characters or fight them. How do we fight in this game? So obviously when we fight, when we perform a combat action, we're going to have a number, which is our strength. But we're going to add the strength of a card. So we are going to flip event cards, which are cards with events that occur sometimes, but which bear strength. And we're going to use that for ourselves and also for the enemy. So the enemy can have a base strength, and you are going to add the score of an event card. Depending on the toughness of your foe, it can be tougher or weaker, so that really depends on how worthy of a foe is it. You can also place the virtue onto the board. So unfortunately, I just have a token, I don't have the sculpt, but it's going to be a mini ultimately. And you can spend 3 action dice to place a virtue onto the board. Sometimes you're going to have setups with virtues on the board, and you can move them around for some dice. What virtues do for you is basically they are going to block out the shadows and the shades that kind of want to go at you and go at your throat. So this is really good. But also, every virtue is going to have an effect, an aura, which grants you a bonus. So for example, courage is a virtue that gives you strength. So it allows you to fight better if the virtue is close to you. Justice is going to help you deal better with people. Prudence is a bit weird. Prudence is going to allow you to master the darkness deck, and you're going to be able to choose what card to pick from, and it's going to help you mitigate the consequences, the bad consequences of the darkness cards. So that's basically how the game goes, and you're going to play through an act with different scenarios and scenes and stories, and at the end, the outcome is determined by your performance. So this is a game which will have multiple campaigns in multiple acts, and you will have different consequences. So as I told you, it's entirely non-linear. And you may save your progress. So for example, if you want to stop at a specific scene, you just can stop and save your progress because the setup of the next scene is going to be on the next card. So if you have a story, it's going to be like 10 minutes long, and a scene is going to be 30 to 40 minutes long. So you know how much you're going to play with each type of sequence. So there you have it for Solomon Kane. So this is a game in which you control virtues. So you oversee the progress of Solomon Kane, and you need to make him heroic. So you need to coordinate your actions, your action cards, your dice, because the dice pool allows you to perform the best actions in the game. That's it. Bye bye, and see you on LudoChrono.